Welcome back to Sports Call here on Tiger 95.9. We are on Radio Row. It's SEC Media Days 2026. Ryan Lavoie and Brooks Childress with you here today. We are pleased to be joined by former NFL and Georgia Bulldog tight end Benjamin Watson on the program today. Benjamin, we appreciate the time. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing all right. This is day 3. This is like hump day. We got to kind of push through, but I'm doing well, learning a lot. It's always good to be here, and you kind of come into these weeks with an understanding of kind of where the teams are, but it's always good to hear from the players, good to hear from the coach. It's good to see you all.
Absolutely, and of course we want to go league-wide in just a little bit, but we do want to start with the Auburn Tigers, a new era for Auburn again with Alex Golesh now at head coach, and obviously this was his home for a few years when he was the South Florida Bulls head coach. But, again, we ask a lot of people this, and I'm always curious, in this day and age of roster building that can be so much more turnover, where does that leave expectations for a coach that comes into a quality program that has a quarterback that people like but has so many moving parts?
I think the expectations, honestly, are a little higher than usual for Auburn. At least my expectations are a little higher than usual for Auburn. Had a chance to talk to Byrum Brown not long ago. Had him on set. There's an Alabama guy, Roman Harper, walking by. He doesn't need to be in this conversation. This is about Auburn. But had Byrum Brown on the set, and I was just really impressed. Obviously, as a player, he's incredible. 3,000 yards last year passing, 1,000 yards on the ground. Big, physical, tough guy. Really smart. Can make all the throws. A leader. But just his presence, his maturity, you could feel it. The quarterback position is so important in football. I don't care what level you're on. And what Auburn has struggled with over the last several years is having stability at the quarterback position. Couldn't find a guy that could stay on the field more than three games. Couldn't find any sort of rhythm on offense. And the thing I love about what Alex Golesh did was he brought so many pieces with him on that offense from South Florida. And so that's why my expectations, I think, are a little bit higher for Auburn, is because, you're already in summer practice and they're already doing things that they've been doing. They've got the same quarterback. You got 2 top receivers in Singleton and Koger, who were catching passes from Brown not long ago. You got a center that he knows. How important is the center? You bring a tight end over. So all these different chess pieces, I think the big question is going to be, obviously, there's a jump in competition. Playing in the SEC is different than the conference they were in before, clearly. People have done it. Just go ask Trinidad Chambliss coming from D2. It's been done before, so I'm not saying that he can't do it. But that's one of the questions, is how does that adjust to the SEC? But I'm very high on what I've seen and what I've heard from Auburn so far.
We've seen it with, as you mentioned, Alex Golesh doing it. Kurt Cignetti did it. There's a lot of coaches that go from a smaller school to a bigger school and bring a lot of their players because of the transfer portal. Yeah. Do you think that's one of the bigger benefits of the portal, that you can go ahead and establish a base with your team by bringing guys with you from your former school?
Well, I think it's a benefit. I also think it expedites expectations. And so there's not the expectation that we need to wait for you for 5 years to be successful. What we saw from Kurt Cignetti, year two, I believe, wins the national championship. Now, everybody's not going to be like that. That was lightning in a bottle, and that's kind of crazy. but what it does mean is that it can be done. And so especially when you're bringing a quarterback of Brown's caliber, an offensive staff of the caliber that they had at USF, the expectations are, okay, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, there needs to be significant improvement over these next 2 years to see this team moving in the right direction. And because of the portal, there's a familiarity already there. There's certain things you don't have to reform because they're already embedded.
Who says Georgia and Alabama's rivalry?
I know, right?
For those that don't know,
that's my guy.
Roman Harper has now messed with Benjamin Watson twice.
we were also teammates in the Saints, though. So
okay,
so we kind of go back.
I was thinking about, has he ever tackled you before?
I played against him before I was on the Saints, so I'm pretty sure, and we practiced against each other a few times. I don't know, NFL, we try not to hit each other too hard in practice.
Sitting down with Benjamin Watson of the SEC Network today. So, Benjamin, let's look at kind of the macro view of the league right now, and obviously there's always so much talk about how many teams are trying to get to the playoffs and that sort of thing. Of course, you always start the conversation with Georgia and what they've been doing under Kirby Smart. huge expectations in Austin this year for Texas. Where do you kind of look at it in terms of the top of the league and the teams you're most confident in this year?
Most confident in? Well, you mentioned Georgia. I think stability is important. And what we've seen from Georgia under Kirby Smart the last 10 years is stability, especially, at the coordinator position. Mike Bobo, Glenn Schumann, been there for several years. Bobo's been there for so long, with different stints. So he's embedded in the program. Kirby Smart there 10 years, 84% winning percentage, over 100 wins. That right there is the foundation for their success. And so when you have that stability and don't have a lot of moving parts coming in and out, then you have an opportunity to play well. Then you look at a team like, I look at a team like Ole Miss, what they did last year without Lane Kiffin in the playoffs. And they're bringing back a quarterback. They're bringing back an electric running back in Kawan Lacey. Pete Golding has been there. So there's a stability piece there as well. You mentioned Texas. Yeah, I think Cam Coleman has to be great for them this year. That's the transfer wide receiver that came from Auburn. that was one of the highlights of Auburn. I don't want to make the Auburn fans upset that he's gone, but this guy was incredible last year. He hasn't scratched really his potential, and so for him going to Texas, I think for Texas to be in that conversation at the end of the season, he has to have had a 1,000-yard season. Mm-hmm. He has to have been like that. And then I think maybe we're rolling the dice a bit on LSU. It's a team we talk a lot about. They've got 41 different transfers, a lot of parts. How are they going to gel together? But I'll tell you, a team that I'm really impressed with just, on paper, in interviews, has been Oklahoma. And being able to hear from John Mateer about how last year went, what he's learned from last year, how he's recovered from the injury. Their defense is going to be strong. They need a run game. If they can find a run game and have that defense, then we'll be talking about them at the end of the season as well.
We referenced it a little bit earlier, but Auburn's one of the teams with a first-year head coach this year.
Yeah.
Of all the teams in the SEC with that first-year head coach, who's set up most right now for success?
Yeah. I've said Auburn. I think it's Auburn. And the reason why is what we started the conversation with is because of the quarterback. It's because you brought two of the quarterback's favorite receivers. You brought three of their top 4 pass catchers from USF. You brought a center, brought a tight end. There's a understanding, unity there, and I just think the defense for Auburn has been fairly stout. And so you couple that with the defense, I think the ceiling is pretty high for them. I wouldn't pick Auburn as an SEC champ. I don't think that's where they are yet, but I think you'll see a significant difference from last year.
And Benjamin, I want to close with this because, again, you are a former Georgia Bulldog, and right now there's a lot of conversation about the Georgia-Florida rivalry because the next couple of seasons it's going to be played in other neutral sites, not Jacksonville, and there's still some chatter that one day it might end up on the campuses. Yeah. Do you have an opinion on where that game should be played?
I love for the game to be on campus. I never played at Florida. In 4 years there, I didn't play at Florida. I would have loved to go play in the Swamp. It would have, been one of those places that's iconic. I understand the economics of it, and I've gone through the economics that, they may have changed, but I know that there's significant benefit for both programs having it, in that neutral site in Jacksonville. I think that's a tradition in and of itself, but there's nothing like games on campuses. There's just not. It's the reason why. There's a reason why in the playoff now you've got some games at home fields. Now, is it economically advantageous for those teams to host? I don't know in the playoffs because they've got to make some changes and everything. But the atmosphere for the fans, the atmosphere for the players, there's nothing like going on the road in the SEC. There's nothing like having a home game in the SEC. It's just different. It's the same thing in the NFL. When you go play it at somebody's home stadium or they come to your home stadium, it's different than when you're playing at a neutral site.
He is Benjamin Watson of the SEC Network with us today. Benjamin, we certainly appreciate the time and look forward to your coverage all season long on the SEC Network.
Looking forward to it as well.
That is Benjamin Watson from SEC Media Days 2026.